Hello, today we're going to talk about balanced and unbalanced forces. The first thing that we're going to do is watch this video together, and I want you to consider the essential questions that are in your assignment. Your essential questions for this assignment is found on slide 2 in Balanced and Unbalanced Forces Part 1. Your essential questions are: what are balanced and unbalanced forces? How are unbalanced forces, how do unbalanced forces cause a change in position, direction, and speed of an object? After listening to this video, you should be able to answer at least one of these. You'll put a check mark by the one you feel comfortable answering and a question mark by the one that you do not. Let's listen to the video.
Balanced forces. Now, balanced forces are forces that are equal in size but opposite in direction. And you can identify balanced forces because they do not cause things to move. Let's look at an example. If we had a box on the floor and you tried to push it from one side, but your friend pushed it from the other side, the box would not move. Therefore, this would be a balanced force. Both you and your friend would be pushing equally hard, so your forces would have an equal size, but you would be pushing one way and your friend would be pushing the opposite way. You're pushing in opposite directions. These two forces cancel out, the box would not move, and we can call them balanced forces. In contrast, unbalanced forces are simply any forces that are not balanced. So for example, if you pushed a box from one side and your friend came to help you, you're now pushing in the same direction. When you push on the box, you will find that it definitely will move. So this is an example of an unbalanced force. Your forces are not canceling out. Here's another example. If you went to push this box, but your friend came to push on the other side, you're pushing from opposite directions, but we can see your friend is much larger. They will be able to put down a much bigger force than you will. And because your forces are different sized, these are unbalanced forces. If you both push, the box will move because your friend is pushing harder. Let's look at some of these together. Let's look at this tug of war contest, and we'll pretend that every person is the exact same strength. Based on this, how could you describe the forces of the blue team compared to the red team? You could say the forces are equal in size because the blue team has 1, 2, 3 people or 3 forces pulling, and the red team also has 1, 2, 3 people or 3 forces pulling. Next, how could you describe the direction of each team's force? You could say the teams are pulling in opposite directions. We see the blue team is pulling to the left and the red team is pulling to the right. So are these forces balanced? Yes, we can say these are balanced forces because they are equally strong and they're happening in opposite directions. Let's look at another tug of war contest. Now we can see here that the blue team is pulling to the left and the red team is pulling to the right. They're pulling in opposite directions. But how could you describe the size of each team's force? Well, you can see the blue team is a larger person. They're going to pull with more force than the red team, who's a smaller person. So these forces have different sizes. Therefore, how could you describe these forces? These are unbalanced forces because they are not equal in size. If you were to watch this tug of war contest, you would see that the blue team would end up winning. Here's one more tug of war contest. Now this one looks a little weird. Even though the teams are pulling with equal force, their forces are equal in size. The blue team has 3 forces, the red team has 3 forces. It doesn't look like a normal tug of war contest. How would you describe the direction that these two teams are pulling in? You would say that both teams are pulling in the same direction. They're all pulling to the left. So do these represent balanced or unbalanced forces? These are unbalanced forces. There will be movement, and if you watch the tug of war contest, they'll easily pull the rope because there's no one pulling in the opposite direction. Now it's time for you to practice on your own. Do these represent balanced or unbalanced forces? Why? Well, these forces are equal in size. Both people will be pushing equally hard, and they're pushing in opposite directions. One person's pushing from the left, the other is pushing from the right. So because these forces are equal in size and opposite in direction, they will cancel or balance each other out. These are balanced forces. The box is not going to move. Here's another example. Do these represent balanced or unbalanced forces? Why? Well, these people are pulling in opposite directions. The blue team is pulling to the left, and the red team is pulling to the right. But these forces are different sizes. The blue team is much larger than the red team. So these are unbalanced forces. If you were to watch this tug of war contest, you would see the blue team wins because they can pull with a stronger force. Now here's one more. Are these balanced or unbalanced forces? Why? Well, these forces are in opposite directions. We have two people pushing from the right and one person pushing from the left. However, these forces are different sizes. Because you have two people pushing on one side and only one person pushing from the other, these are unbalanced or not equal forces. If you let everyone push, the box would move to the left because two people are stronger than the one person. So from today, remember, balanced forces are equal in size but opposite in direction. And in balanced forces, they do not cause any motion. Today we are learning.
All right. So what we're doing here now is we're going to look at our assignment. And we are going to start on slide 3. On slide 3, it says a force is a push or pull from one object on another. It may not cause movement. Gravity's force pulls downward toward Earth's center. Air resistance pushes against moving objects. Applied force is when a person or an object directly pushes or pulls on another object. It is normal or supporting force is the name of the force that holds the object in place against gravity or other forces. For example, you have gravity that pushes a book down onto the table, while the table pushes up on the book. What is the normal force here? Would it be the book or the table? Write your answer here. Click and drag the definite definition to its turn. So, what is a balanced force? What is an unbalanced force? And what is a net force? Your options are dragging and clicking to the correct spot. The overall force acting on an object expressed in newtons, N. When two equal forces act on an object in opposite directions. When unequal forces cause an object to move. Match these appropriately. Two forces equal in size and acting in opposite directions of each other is the example of a balanced force. The object stays still or continues to move at the same, also known as constant speed, and in the same direction. For example, you have a soccer ball sitting on the ground. It is not moving. Gravity and the normal force are equal and opposite, therefore it is balanced. What is another example that you can provide? Type it right here in the answer box. These are all examples of balanced forces. You have a car at rest. You have a baby at rest. You have a teacup at rest. Then you have a constant speed in the same direction of a motorcycle and of a horse. These are all balanced forces and unbalanced forces. Unbalanced forces are when two forces that are unequal in size and opposite in direction. It always causes a change in motion in one of these areas: position, direction, and speed. For example, the moon orbiting the Earth, because it changes direction and position, is an unbalanced force. Think of two unbalanced forces that you can provide examples of and put them in these boxes. Unbalanced force examples. So you have your box that moves to the left with 20 newtons and 10 newtons on the other side, on the right side. You have your race cars. You have your moon going around the earth. These are all changing directions. Then you have your horses going in opposite directions when horse number 2 is stronger. Then you have the student exerting the strongest force will determine which way this student is going to be pulled. Net force. The overall forces acting on an object. It is measured in newtons. Which way will the people move on the right? So the person here on the left has 3 newtons, while the person on the right has 2 newtons. So 3 minus 2 is 1 newton of force. Which one would be moving? Which way would they move? To the right or to the left? And why do you think that? Put your answer in the box. Let's do our think about it. Bumper cars are an example of unbalanced forces. When 2 cars run into each other, the one that has the most force will continue forward when the other is bumped away. How could you predict the bumper cars will win in a collision? Describe an experiment you could do that would help you know whether the weight, speed, or direction of the cars have the biggest effect of collision outcome. For example, I would predict that the car with the most human weight would win. To test this, I would put in 2 different people of 2 different sizes and test my theory. There's other things that you can do as well. Type your example and your prediction in this box. You're going to drag and drop the examples of balanced forces and unbalanced forces. Which one is balanced and which one is not? One tug-of-war team pulls harder than the other. Are 2 teams playing tug-of-war? Each team is pulling with equal forces in opposite directions. How do unbalanced forces cause a change in position of an object? A skier is at the top of the hill. That is a balanced force. Another skier bumps him. Now it is an unbalanced force, causing him to fall down. This unbalanced force caused his position to change. In your own words, how does an unbalanced force cause a change in a position of an object? Write your answer here in this box. For example, an unbalanced force can change a position in a direction if you tip your chair and it falls down with you in it. So keep your chair on all fours. How do unbalanced forces cause a change in direction of an object? A skier is at the top of the hill, which is a balanced force. Then the skier decides to point her skis down the hill and push off, which now is an unbalanced force. This unbalanced force causes her to change in direction. In your own words, how does an unbalanced force cause a change in direction of an object? So, if she's at the top of the hill and she pushes off and it becomes an unbalanced force, in what direction would she be heading and why? How do unbalanced forces cause a change in speed of an object? A skier is at the top of the hill again. That is a balanced force. At the beginning of a race, as he flies down the mountain, which is an unbalanced force, he picks up speed. This unbalanced force causes him to change in speed. A change in speed. In your own words, how does unbalanced forces cause a change in speed of an object? So when you have a ball in your hand and you keep it in your hand, it is balanced. But when you let it go and you dribble it, Does it dribble slower or faster? Why? Put your answer in the box. Isaac Newton's third law of motion states that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. That means if a car collides into a brick wall, the same force pushes back against the car. This is why cars that drive into brick walls don't look so good. If you were about to run into a brick wall, would hitting your brakes lessen the force of the collision, even if you knew it wouldn't completely stop you? Why or why not? Put your answer here in the box. For example, hitting the brakes would help you because would it increase or decrease your acceleration, and therefore would it increase or decrease your force of impact? Decide which words best complete the sentences and delete the extra word. This is a show what you know slide here. What you're going to do is you're going to read each situation and decide if it's an example of a balanced force or unbalanced force. You're going to click the label with your answer choice and drag it off to the side to see if you are correct. If you are incorrect, put it back and select the correct answer. This is also a show what you know slide. You will take and you will describe what a balanced and unbalanced force is. And then you will identify and describe how unbalanced forces can cause a change in position, direction, and speed of an object. And that is all for today.